In my research, my eyes were open, so to speak, because I was enlightened not only on the prevalence, causes, and consequences of housing insecurity, but also the core drivers of poverty that so many low income families, particularly people of color, are faced with here in America. For example, 4 in 10 low income people in New Jersey are homeless or pay over half their income for rent. And more than 300,000 people in New Jersey households use federal rental assistance. Rental assistance is significant because studies show that people who experience housing insecurity may likely face eviction. And eviction has been linked to homelessness. And homelessness, in turn, can lead to a host of problems that impact our society. Now, let me just tell you, I too experienced housing insecurity, eviction, and homelessness. And trust me, it ain't nothing nice when you're out in the streets with no home to call your own. There ain't nothing nice when you've seen and experienced eviction and homelessness, and when you are forced to relocate under those circumstances. At times, it was so painful that I literally cried. I did not like the fact that either myself, a family member, or a friend had been forced out of a dwelling place we called home because we could not afford to pay the rent any longer. Some people falter under those circumstances and experience mental health and wellness issues, alcohol and drug abuse problems, and some even resort to crime. And as we all may know, crime leads to incarceration. And to be candid with you all, I could tell you that I, myself, experienced all the above. Oh, but let me tell you, I've come to learn of a place we call the Eviction Lab. For example, throughout the summer, people have often asked me, what is the Eviction Lab? What do you guys do in the Eviction Lab? So let me start by answering the former first. The Eviction Lab is a research center located in the sociology department at Princeton University. It was founded in 2017 by Matthew Desmond. He's a sociology professor here in Princeton. The lab is the first organization to have created a national estimate of evictions. This is significant because the federal government does not track any information on evictions. Consequently, the Eviction Lab's mission is to document the prevalence, causes, and consequences of eviction here in America. Thus, lab personnel conduct research, collect data to help inform policymakers, advocates, tenants, and the general public about evictions. Understanding evictions is very important too, because it raises awareness of housing insecurity and homelessness. For example, people of color, particularly Black renters, account for 20% of the nation's renters, but they receive over 30% of all eviction judgments. In 2018, there were 3.6 million evictions filed in the United States. While women are at a higher risk of eviction, than men. And families with children are 3 times as likely to be evicted. The most frequent evictions, however, they occur in the most disadvantaged urban areas, specifically those areas that suffer from high crime rates. Now, during my internship, there were some specific needs expressed to me by the Eviction Lab staff. Since the inception of the Eviction Lab, its research has focused primarily on evictions. However, the lab has recently expanded its research to look more broadly at housing and economic inequality. One of the ways that they're doing this is by researching the amount of government benefits that go to homeowners versus renters, which is something I've come learn to know more about in my research project. In addition, my research included, but not limited to, researching controlling laws and policies regarding federal subsidies, Section 8 programs, vouchers, state and local taxes, and low-income housing tax credits. And so, at this time, I feel that it's important for me to explain some of these terms. Let us begin with Section 8 rental assistance. This program is known as Section 8 because it is outlined under the 8th section of the United States Housing Act. The Section 8 program is actually 2 separate initiatives specified under the Amended Housing Act of 1937. The program formally began in the United States in 1974 with the creation of the Housing and Community Development Act. Next, we have Housing Choice Voucher. Through Section 8, low-income tenants receive financial assistance by way of Housing Choice Vouchers. A voucher is a piece of paper or a document that entitles a holder to a discount or that may be exchanged for goods or services. These vouchers allow recipients to obtain affordable housing. Finally, for this presentation, we have federal and state subsidies. A housing choice voucher can be a federal subsidy. It could be benefits given to an individual, business, or institution, usually by the government. They can be direct, such as cash payments, or indirect, such as tax breaks. Subsidies are typically given to remove some type of burden and is often considered to be in the overall interest of the public. So there you have it. Those are some of the key terms I've come to learn during my research project, based solely on the needs that were expressed to me by Eviction Lab staff. Speaking of staff, as you all have already met her, Catherine Dole and Carl Gershenson were my supervising mentors. Lauren Traum and Tasneem Yusufali were also instrumental in my research project. They all provided me with the necessary technological equipment, stationery, and information to facilitate my work, which I began to perform by researching Rutgers Library database under Westlaw and various organizations and government websites such as urban.org, newjersey.gov, and huduser.gov, among others. As a result of my research, I've come to learn that there is much more information needed to help policymakers, advocates, tenants, and the general public about evictions, including the time it generally takes to receive a housing voucher. I've also come to learn that more federal dollars go to home ownership subsidies, which mainly benefit higher income households instead of those families that are struggling the most to sustain housing. To me, these matters are of central importance because many low-income families, particularly people of color, are struggling to make ends meet. And some are being deprived of the minimal civilized measures of life's necessities. To be blunt, they are poverty-driven and poverty-ridden. It is clear from these facts that I'm giving. New Jersey communities, among others in this country, can only thrive and abide when everyone, renters and homeowners, black, white, brown, yellow, you name it, we claim it, but all should have access to decent, affordable housing. Now, just as I myself can relate well to the issues of housing insecurity, eviction, homelessness, and yes, poverty too, my research project in the Eviction Lab is the first phase of an ongoing research study, which has allowed me to get a greater understanding of housing and economic inequality here in America. And sources such as NewJersey.gov, Tax Policy Center, and Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, among others, provided me with a great deal of relevant information. However, I did indeed struggle a bit to locate some data, had a little issues here and there. Consequently, I consulted with my supervising mentors, some Princeton librarians, other cohorts, and staff members here at Princeton. They were all readily available to guide, instruct, and answer my questions, which allowed me to overcome those research hurdles and move forward with the Eviction Lab's mission of collecting data and documenting the causes and causes of eviction here in America. Despite all the painstaking work that is done here in the Eviction Lab, much more research and funding is needed to provide awareness and solutions to this national crisis of housing and economic inequality. The Eviction Lab's research has also shown that economic inequality and evictions are not only a consequence of poverty, but also a cause of poverty. Thus, I implore you all to look into the eviction crisis here in America. And while it may or may not be an issue to you, it certainly is a fundamental issue that so many low-income families are struggling to overcome. And that, my friends, is a major problem for society as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, housing insecurity can lead to eviction. Evictions have been linked to homelessness. And homelessness, in turn, can lead to a host of problems, such as mental health and wellness issues, drug and alcohol abuse, and crime, which has a bearing on incarceration rates, increased incarceration rates. With that said, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity, your time, and your attention. I would like to go to my acknowledgments here, and I would like to thank the inspiring scholars and professionals of Emma Bloomberg Center for Access and Opportunity at Princeton for this amazing opportunity and experience. I would like to thank New Jersey Scholarships and Transformative Educations in Prisons, Rutgers University, Raritan Valley Community College for granting me the opportunity to earn a higher education. I would like to also thank Dr. Afia Afora Menza. You all have met her this morning. I would like to thank Catherine Dole. You all have met her this morning. I would like to thank Carl Gershenson, Lauren Traum, Shavari Tachachar, Annalon LeMay, Tasneem Yusufali, Nick Grace, Peter Hepburn, and Sarat Tungusari or Kundusari. Which one is it?
Tankasari.
Tankasari. Well, thank you. It may take me a minute, Sarat, but Mr. Surratt here was very instrumental, I would like you all to know, in helping me, along with my supervising mentor and Dr. Afia Afori. They were very helpful to me with all of the research and all of the needs that I readily had to have at my disposal. And let me tell you, Surratt is an amazing guy. I've learned a lot from him. I learned that we grew up in some of the same areas, I say, so to speak. And I've learned a lot from my supervising mentor. They provided me with a lot of, I'm challenged so much with technology, how technology has evolved. And so they were so amazing in my life. They were so amazing because they brought me to a different point in my life now. And I feel better about navigating, even when I get on the computer today. And so Dr. Afia, oh boy, we had so many career workshops. And I mean, the knowledge was just flowing off the top of her head. She provided us, among many other students, with outstanding help and academic growth. So I would like to thank you all, and so much. And also, finally, I would like to thank my cohorts from the program here, and I'm going to start with Chris. We had community group meetings every week, and Chris was on point. Chris said, "What, man, what you doing late?" If I walked in 1 minute, "What you doing late, man? You can't be doing that up in Princeton." So I would like to thank Chris because he actually stayed on me. Okay. I would like to thank Wally, Claude, Mr. Stackhouse. I don't see Ali. He must have stepped out. Oh, okay. But I would like to thank you all. And I have a brother here from New Jersey STEP, Scholarship and Transformative Educations in Prison. And Sammy has been very instrumental as far as seeing me along my way when I attend Rutgers University, and he and I communicate often about our challenges that we're faced with, and in the colleges, and making the transition from being a system impacted individual and then having to re-enter society and start all over again. And so with my research project, it raised my awareness about what people are faced with in life, particularly low-income people of color. And so it touched my heart. This really touched me. It took me a while. I had some challenges, but it touched me because it spoke about a life that I had lived. It spoke about the times when I faced eviction, and my family and my friends faced eviction. And it really opened my eyes about the federal subsidies and the benefits that homeowners receive over renters, and the causes and consequences of poverty. It just really opened my eyes, and it's something that's so important. It's really important to me, and I hope it's all important to you, because a situation like this, what goes on here, has the ability to impact your lives as well. Some people that are evicted, they turn to the streets, and they don't know what to do in these urban areas. And they steal to eat. They steal to put food and clothing on themselves. And that's a crime. And some of them end up in prison, like I did. And so I hope that this is well received by all of you. And I really and truly, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your time. I thank you for my cohorts, colleagues, everyone here. And I thank you for Princeton University for having me, the Eviction Lab, and everyone. And I'm opening the floor to any questions. Do we have any questions? Okay, we have Chris over here. Oh, come on, Chris. I was on time today, right?
Time. You No, if you're on time, you're late already.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, like this is very fascinating work and research, and this has been something that I've also interacted with, and I wanted to know a little bit more about accountability. So what I've seen is, we have names that call them slumlords at times, but you'll have individuals who run apartment complexes, that may let them, just basically fall into a dilapidated state. They may raise rents at their own discretion, and they'll have the backing of a court system behind them to basically do what they want to do. Is there anything being put in place to hold these individuals more accountable, and does that intersect with your research in any way?
Okay, Chris. So that is an excellent question, and yes, I can answer that question. Okay, and I'm going to say it simply in the beginning, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit. So there is a system in place, and we call that. Some people call it the criminal justice system. Some people call it the criminal legal system, but I call it a system of racial injustice. And I'll tell you, to answer your question, when someone is dealing with, so you call them a bum landlord, a slum landlord, okay. When someone is in that situation, you have what we call the criminal justice system, right? And so, just as a landlord could take a tenant to court, a tenant can take a landlord to court. And that falls up under landlord tenant law. And if you want to know more about landlord tenant law, you can look in New Jersey statutes annotated, and it will tell you what you need to do to move forward through the courts. You would also want to consult the court rules, New Jersey court rules. So to answer your question, when a tenant is faced with issues such as bad plumbing, flooding, ceiling leaking, you name it, bad railings, then that tenant has a right to begin a process through the criminal justice system. And they would do that by filing a complaint and a summons against their landlord. They would only need the landlord's address, contact information, and that it would be how they handle it. Now, I heard you say something about raising rent. Uh, there is some laws that limit landlords from raising the rent to, I'm not sure, I think the last time I read it was about 6%, but each year a landlord cannot exceed that. And I could be incorrect with the 6%. That was the last time I read it in my researches, and that was quite some time ago. But the landlord cannot just boost up your rent and say, "Oh, you were paying me 1,200, and now all of a sudden you got to give me 1,300." No, the law does not permit that. So there are ranges that landlords must follow, and I hope that answers your question. Um, is there any other questions? Wow, wow, dang, I guess I did good. Thank you.